3 weeks before Christmas, my daughter told me not to come because her husband wanted to celebrate just with family, as if I weren't. I smiled, wished them peace, then set my clock for 8 a.m., when banks open and boundaries become numbers you can move. You're watching Revenge Files. Subscribe for a new twist daily. I live on the east side of Columbus, Ohio, in a brick ranch my late husband and I bought when interest rates were still a rumor. My daughter, Lauren, lives 15 minutes away in a tan 2-story, with black shutters and a wreath she keeps up from the first cold snap in November until the last dirty snow in March. Her husband, Tyler, installed a projector in their living room so big the football players look like they could step off the wall and track mud across their rug. He calls that family time. The call came on December 1st, 2023, at 7:13 p.m. I know the exact time because I stood at the kitchen counter with a pen still uncapped over my grocery list. "We don't want you to come for Christmas," Lauren said, breath even, voice rehearsed. "Tyler wants to celebrate just with family." The sentence had edges, like a plate left in the freezer. I felt my jaw find a position that wouldn't tremble. I told her I loved her and wished them peace, and I hung up before the heat rising in my chest turned into words I would regret. Conflict found me like a wind that bends the little pines. It wasn't about a seat at their table. I could set my own table. It was the part where I was still paying for the table they used. My late husband, Daniel, died in 2021. He worked at an insurance firm downtown and wore ties even on casual Fridays. He left a modest trust for Lauren and my 2 grandsons, with me as trustee. Health, education, maintenance, support, the attorney had said, tapping each word with his finger like a metronome. The trust paid $2,400 per month to Lauren's household for specific expenses verified with receipts. I also kept a small, separate account for the boys' orthodontics and summer camps, because teeth in July never wait. I had told myself for 2 years that discretion meant generosity. I approved daycare invoices, a roof repair after hail, and a used Honda when their minivan started, making a noise like a drawer of forks. But the last 3 months had smelled wrong. A spa charge in Dublin, too high to be a haircut. 3 withdrawals from a sports bar that didn't serve kids' meals. A parts store in Grove City where you don't buy family. Each time, Lauren would send a text, reimbursing Tyler for babysitter, or a screenshot of a preschool payment in an amount that didn't match. I flagged them in yellow. I waited. Waiting made me complicit. At 8 a.m. on December 2, I called Huntington's Trust Department and asked for my officer, a steady man named Eric who wears brown shoes with gray suits. I told him I suspected misuse. I asked him to pause the December distribution pending documentation and to cancel a scheduled wire I had approved on November 28, $7,800 to a cabin company in Hocking Hills called Red Fern Retreats. That wire, I learned, was set to hit on Monday. "You have full discretion under the instrument," he said. "Do you want an administrative hold?" I felt the pulse in my wrist steady. "Yes, effective today." But then the cabin company called me. The manager sounded like every person who has ever had to smile while being insulted. "Ma'am, I'm just confirming we received a reversal request from your bank on the Willow Ridge Lodge booking for December 23rd through 26th. It's under Tyler Gibson." I told him the funds were from a restricted family trust. The booking was outside permitted purposes. He sighed. "We'll release the date if the wire doesn't land by end of day Monday." I thanked him. I hung up. I exhaled. Their perfect, projected Christmas started to flicker. I pulled the trust binder from the hall closet. I laid out the last 6 months of statements on my dining table and circled every transaction that didn't look like health, education, maintenance, support. The circles multiplied. $462.39 at a tire shop, $388.12 at a salon where the stylists wear leather aprons, $129.99 for something labeled Pro-Line Hitch, and then 3 ATM withdrawals on a Saturday, $200 each, made at a gas station near a stadium bar Tyler frequented. I printed Lauren's texts with their neat explanations. I printed the preschool invoices that didn't match the dates. I started a spreadsheet with 3 columns: date, transaction, stated purpose. The mismatch bled like a nose you bump twice. I typed up a formal notice of suspension of distributions, citing the HEMS clause like it was a hymn. I gave them a 10-day window to provide receipts for every non-obvious charge, and I stated that, until then, disbursements would be made directly to vendors only. I sent it by certified mail, and by email, because paper gets lost when people want it lost. Before lunch, I called the orthodontist and put my card on file for the boys. "We'll bill you directly for December," the receptionist said. "You're the grandmother of the year." "Not this year," I said, "just the trustee." Except, Tyler didn't wait for letters. At 9:26 that night, he sent a text so long it arrived in 3 bubbles. Words like control and manipulate and cheap. He accused me of hating him since the first time he came over wearing work boots on my rug. He said the cabin was for real family. He said keeping your dead husband's money made me feel powerful. He ended with, "You step foot on my property, I'll have you escorted off." I set the phone face down. I made tea. I let the kettle be louder than me. The next day, I filed a police report. Not to press charges, just to create a record. I gave the officer copies of the text messages and my letter. He nodded like a man who has seen holidays do their worst. "Document," he said. "Everything. People get weird when gifts look like obligations." I smiled at that. Obligations aren't gifts, they are agreements. And ours had rules. On Monday, the cabin company released Willow Ridge Lodge. The manager left me a voicemail, no wire. "We've relisted the dates." I imagined Tyler's face when he called to ask about check-in instructions, and learned the reservation was gone. Petty satisfaction isn't nutrition, but it will warm your hands for a minute. I washed the petty off with dishes. I booked an appointment with a trust attorney, a woman named Tessa Hale in a restored brick house near Franklin Park. Her retainer was $3,500, which I transferred that afternoon. "You have discretion," she said, reading the instrument. "But discretion isn't a shield. You still have duties. If funds are misused, you have to act." "I'm acting," I said. We drafted a petition for the Franklin County Probate Court, asking for instructions and an order to restrict access to the trust debit card. Lauren had one, which had been used for some of the questionable charges. We also asked for an accounting from the household for the last 6 months. Our filing date was December 7th. Tessa said, "We can get a quick hearing. Judges understand December." Until the bank called me with a question I should have asked myself earlier. "Ms. Reed," Eric said, "who authorized adding a second cardholder?" My chest tightened. "There's a separate debit card ending in 2298, issued in August, picked up in person at Easton. Lauren's card ended in 3171. Tyler had 2298. He can't be a cardholder on a trust account," I said, though the sentence sounded like a wish. "Policy says only the trustee and any CO trustee," Eric replied. "We're investigating whether the card was issued in error." I stared at my dining table spread like a crime scene you don't want anyone to see. If Tyler had obtained a card by presenting himself as an authorized user of the household account, not the trust, the bank had a problem bigger than mine. "Freeze both cards," I said. "Issue a new one to me only. All distributions by check to vendors until further notice." My voice went flat. Boundaries need edges. I emailed Lauren a copy of the petition and offered a path: show receipts, meet me and the attorney, agreed to direct pay only, and we would restore the monthly support for acceptable expenses. "No one is trying to starve your kids," I wrote. "I'm ensuring the money meant for them doesn't buy a lift kit." She didn't respond. Silence was her shield when she wanted me to feel like the bad guy. Tessa secured a hearing date of December 20 at 9 a.m. We had 12 days. I spent them doing the quiet labor of making a case. I printed bank logs. I annotated them in blue for allowed, red for questionable, green for already reversed. I called the preschool and asked them to email every invoice paid since July. I asked the pediatrician's office for a statement of account for the year. I called the tire shop and requested a copy of the receipt. It was for off-road wheels, the clerk said. "You want the SKU?" I did not. I had enough. But then the mail brought a reminder that money has a memory. A year earlier, when Lauren and Tyler found their tan two-story, the bank balked at their down payment. Tyler's overtime had dried up, and the lender wanted proof of funds. I had offered $48,000 as a private loan to fill the gap, secured by a second mortgage. More properly, a recorded second deed of trust on the property. We had done it correctly with a promissory note at 3% interest, a repayment schedule, and a clause that any misrepresentation of finances would constitute default. The December statement from the county recorder's office confirmed what I already knew but had not used. My lien was real, my security interest current, and my rights available. I had never intended to enforce them, until a grown man told me I wasn't family while spending money meant for my grandsons on wheels taller than the boys. I drafted a notice of default dated December 12 for non-payment since September, and for material misrepresentation in using restricted trust funds as household income. The note allowed a 10-day cure period. I did not want their house. I wanted their attention. I taped the notice to their front door at 8:05 a.m., so the neighbor with the inflatable Santa would see me acting lawful. Then I mailed a copy certified. My hand shook only when I got back in my car. Lauren called within an hour. "You're ruining my life," she said. Her voice cracked on the way it did when she was 9 and thought I had thrown away a school project she had left under the couch. "You're ruining your own life," I said gently. "Stop letting Tyler ruin it with you." She hung up. Every mother knows the sound of a door closing without hinges. On December 14th, the bank finished its internal review. Eric confirmed what the logs said. The 2,298 card had been issued in error at the branch when Tyler presented his driver's license and claimed he was picking up a replacement for his wife's card on their account. The teller saw the household address, saw his name on the utility bill he offered, and didn't notice the account was a trust. The bank apologized in writing. They reimbursed the trust for $2,317.40. In transactions clearly outside permitted purposes and acknowledged an operational mistake. I slid the letter into a clear sleeve and put it on top of my stack. Tyler responded the way men respond when consequences come dressed like paperwork. He parked his truck on the street in front of my house 2 nights in a row and idled for 15 minutes. He didn't get out. He wanted me to see him seeing me. I installed a floodlight camera and called the non-emergency line. The officer drove by. The truck moved. I documented the times, dates, license plate. I slept with the lamp on for an hour, then off. At 9 a.m. on December 20, I took a seat in probate courtroom 6B with my binder and my hands folded. The judge was a calm woman with a pen that she clicked when she needed a moment. Tessa handled the talking. "This is not a dispute about holiday seating," she said. "It's a trustee who detected misuse and acted within her discretion. She seeks the court's instruction and protection." Across the aisle, Tyler wore a sport coat a size too small. Lauren wore a black sweater and kept her eyes on her hands. The judge asked me to explain the HEMS standard in plain English. "It means I'm supposed to make sure the money pays for necessities," I said, "not truck wheels or beer." The judge nodded. "And what steps did you take when you suspected misuse?" I described the hold, the canceled wire, the vendor direct pay, the notice, the accounting requests, the bank's letter. I kept my voice level. I did not say Christmas once. Tessa introduced our exhibits, July through November bank statements, the cabin booking invoice, the bank's apology letter, the tire receipt, the preschool invoices, the text messages. She didn't show the police report. We didn't need it unless Tyler made noise. He made noise. He asked to speak. The judge allowed 2 minutes. "She's trying to control us," he said. "This is about her not being invited. She's punishing us." The judge clicked her pen once. "Mr. Gibson, were you issued a card on the trust account?" "The bank gave me one," he said. "So I used it, for what?" He swallowed. "Babysitters. Gas?" The judge lifted the bank's letter. "And off-road wheels?" He lifted his chin like a man posing for a mugshot and said nothing. The judge delivered her ruling from the bench, voice even. She found that misuse had occurred in the amount of $9,812.40. Over 6 months, including transactions reimbursed by the bank. She ordered that Tyler be removed from any access to trust funds and prohibited from possessing or using any trust instruments. She approved my plan to pay vendors directly and reduce discretionary household support to $1,200 per month for 6 months, to be reviewed in June with the fresh accounting. She ordered Tyler to reimburse the trust $7,495, payable over 24 months, and assessed $2,100 in attorney's fees against him personally for causing the misuse. "This court does not adjudicate family invitations," she said. "It adjudicates fiduciary duties." Those duties were met. She signed written findings and instructions. The clerk stamped the paper. The sound of the stamp was a gavel without drama. But the hearing wasn't the end of my leverage. When we stepped into the hallway, Tessa handed Tyler a copy of the default notice tied to the second mortgage, with the cure amount calculated, 3 missed payments, late fees, and interest, totaling $4,416. You have until December 22nd, she said. If not cured, the note allows us to accelerate. We'd rather not go there. He looked at Lauren, then at me, like he was trying to decide which bridge to burn first. He muttered something about finding the money. I did not ask where. On December 22, at 4:37 p.m., a certified check for $4,416 arrived at Tessa's office. The default was cured. I signed the receipt. I drove past the tan 2-story that night. The projector shone a fireplace on their living room wall, orange and flickerless. Inflatable Santa waved next door, unbothered by jurisprudence. Christmas Eve, I went to the early service at church and sat in the back, the way widows do. I dropped off a bag with 2 Lego sets and a box of books for the boys with the pastor's wife, who promised to deliver them after dinner so the boys wouldn't know how toys travel. You're sure? She asked. Yes, I said. Gifts are not summonses. I drove home past houses wreathed like packages. The winter air smelled like wood smoke and cinnamon, and the kind of hunger that isn't for food. Except the phone can resurrect what pride buries. At 8:52 p.m., my screen lit with Lauren's name. I let it ring twice so I wouldn't sound like I was standing under the bell when I answered. Merry Christmas, Mom, she said. No edges, no rehearsal. In the background I heard the boys, one crying the way children cry when bedtime attacks hope. Thank you for the gifts, she said, and for paying the orthodontist, and for not making it worse. The last words landed with the grace of a person who doesn't yet know how to apologize but wants to enter the foyer of it. I'm keeping the support going, I said, direct to what matters. That's my job. Silence stretched comfortably. Tyler's mad, she added, but he's also selling the wheels. I smiled at my dark window where my reflection looked like a person I had met and liked. Wheels turn, I said. So do seasons. January brought the administrative quiet that feels like healing when you've been living in a storm. The bank issued me a new card with only my name. I set up vendor payments on autopilot, daycare, orthodontics, pediatrician. I moved the boys' camp fund to a separate savings with a nickname that made me laugh, July teeth and sunscreen. Tyler made his first reimbursement payment on January 15, $312.29, exact down to the penny Tessa had written to the schedule. He didn't have to want to pay, he had to pay. That is what orders are for. Lauren sent me receipts like a person learning a new language, photos of paid invoices, PDFs with dates that matched, a dentist bill for a filling for the older boy who clenches his jaw when math gets hard. We met for coffee on a gray Saturday, halfway between our houses, at a place that sells pastries so buttery the bag goes translucent by the time you get to the car. She hugged me in the parking lot without saying the word sorry, which was right for then. I handled it wrong, she said. I want to do better. You will, I said. We both will. Tyler didn't come. The silence felt like a table with one missing fork. You can still eat, but you notice. Spring arrived with daffodils that insist on themselves. The court review in June went clean. The judge extended direct pay and restored the household support to the original amount because the receipts matched and the reimbursements were current. She nodded at me, at Tessa, at the paper that said people had done what paper told them to do. The bank sent another letter confirming policy changes at the branch where the wrong card had been issued. They called it training. I called it the cost of assuming. There were ripples. Tyler stopped parking in front of my house because the payments left him less gas to waste. He learned the phrase wage garnishment when he was late in March and sent the money the next day. He uninvited me from 3 more things I did not want to attend, which is how you learn the freedom of non-attendance. Lauren came over on Sundays sometimes, just her and the boys. We ate spaghetti and watched movies on a modest television that doesn't pretend to be a wall. By the following December, the projector at their house played a crackling hearth again. I imagine it will keep playing for years until someone replaces the wall. The boys' teeth, my July fund's quiet work, straightened. They smiled with metal, then without. Lauren started a bookkeeping course at Columbus State and texted me a screenshot of her A in the first class. Thank you, she typed, then added a second line. I mean it. I stared at the words for longer than anyone stares at text that short. Revenge is a word people use when they want to dramatize what is sometimes just administration with backbone. I didn't slash tires or spoil secrets. I called a bank. I read a trust instrument like it mattered more than a wreath. I showed up in a courtroom where a judge clicked a pen and turned misused money back into groceries, orthodontics, and a summer that smells like cut grass. Their perfect family Christmas ended before it began, not because I wanted a chair at their table, but because I refused to let money meant for children buy a grown man's toys. On Christmas Eve this year, I will go to the early service again. I will sit in the back, the way people do when they have learned that peace is not an emotion you wait for. It is a decision you enforce.